Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Arthur's Roundtable. Super grateful for everybody that's paying attention and sharing and your comments. I super appreciate the engagement. And so thank you. Noah and I don't know each other, but we just definitely connected in a way that made sense for the audience to hear what he has to say. And so I'm super interested in hearing it for the first time along with you. So, Noah, thanks for doing this. Let's start at the beginning, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Dr. Noah St. John. You can find out more about me on my website, noahstjohn.com, just like it sounds. And what I do is I help entrepreneurs and business owners, CEOs, founders, family offices to do two things with their wealth. One is to build wealth, and the other is to protect wealth. So I like to call it offense and defense, kind of like a football team, right? So you need the offense to build that wealth, and then you need the defense to protect the wealth. And so that's what I do. And I've helped my clients add over $3 billion since 1997. And I work with celebrities, athletes, CEOs, founders, family offices, entrepreneurs, and just lots of great people like yourself, Arthur. And I'm just excited to be here.
Get carried away, but we'll find out how great I am, right?
Well, that's what I do.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind, can we just little compare and contrast discussion? There's a whole body of work for estate planning attorneys and financial advisors, and then there's seemingly a growing group of people that have hung out their shingle and saying, let us help you with your legacy. And I'm being sarcastic on purpose because it seems to be an endless amount of people that do that. How do you differentiate yourself from the estate planning attorney or the financial advisor, and with growing and keeping your wealth?
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, Arthur, because you're exactly right. There's what most family offices and high net worth individuals and families find is that they are very, very well protected on what I call the outer game. Okay, the outer game is everything that you just mentioned, the tax attorneys, the estate planning, the trust, and everything like that. Now, you absolutely 1,000,000% have to have that, obviously, right? That's crucial.
Totally. Yeah.
However, my point is, and having helped my clients add so many billions of dollars, I'm totally right about this, is that for most people, they're ignoring the 3 pounds of gray matter that controls all of that. And that means your brain. Now, I call that neural legacy protection. Neural meaning your brain, right? So my question to the folks listening to this program today is, you're doing all of the outer game stuff, but who is helping you with the inner game? And usually the answer to that is nobody. Yeah. Usually nothing. What are you doing to protect the 3 pounds of gray matter that's controlling the whole thing? Usually nothing. So that's what I do. That's where I come in. So I am literally an augmentation of, like, I'm kind of like an adjunct professor to all of these things that you already have in place, the outer game. But I mean, the classic example of this, there's actually several classic examples, but one classic example is, which you've all heard, is lottery winners, right? Lottery winners, we've all heard this. They, 75% go broke within 5 years after winning the lottery.
Yeah.
Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that, yeah, they won, and of course, a very short amount of time. They won millions or tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's the outer game, but there was no one there to protect or help them protect the inner game, so they lost it all. That's example number one. Example number two, that probably most people listening have also heard, is that phrase, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. You're nodding your head, so you've heard this, right?
Yeah.
And that's where this really comes from. Now, again, I'm going to stress that you must have the estate planning, the tax attorneys, all of that outer game stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves phenomenon really, when you actually look at it, is a neural problem, meaning, an inner game, as I call it, an inner game problem. And no one is helping people with that, which is why 70% of all wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation and 90% by the third. Hello. Those are not good odds. So that's what I come in, and that's what I help you protect.
So one would argue that if one was aware of this phenomenon, the third generation losing most or all of the money, that they would take it seriously, that they might want to do something about it. And
Yes.
uh, if you don't mind, I'll editorialize here for a second. Being that I in the crossroads of a lot of interesting people, most of which have single family offices,
Right.
um, the number one thing that they seem to want, and I've heard this dozens and dozens, or if not hundreds of times,
Yes.
is that they want to commune with their peers
Right.
with the intention of saying, here's the fact pattern I'm dealing with. How did you deal with it?
Right.
Still have to have the advisors augmenting all that, but they want to hear directly from somebody that had a visceral experience of dealing with the same problem they had, and they'd like to hear from them
That's
how
right.
they dealt with it, right? So how do you get someone to say, okay, Noah, have you dealt with this problem and how can you help me? Or is it you're not interested in that part of the solution phase? You're more interested in helping them with their neural mindset.
Well, that's a very deep question, Arthur. And so what I do is I help people when they're ready for the help. But the problem with that is they don't think they need it 99% of the time. So one of the things when I talk to family offices, single family offices, and their principals, one of the things that I hear the most right now is that you have the older generation, of course, is retiring or has retired, right? And, tens of millions of Americans are at that retirement age and they don't want to work anymore. It's like, I'm tired. I did all this, it's time for you guys to take over.
Right.
But so what's happening is that when you get into those meetings, you have the gray hairs trying to talk to the purple hairs,
Yeah.
which is the third generation. And whew, they're like, what are we talking here? They're literally talking different languages. They're just not communicating. And, the gray hairs are pulling what's left of their hair out going, what is with these, what is with this generation here? Why can't I get through? And of course, the younger generation is saying, oh my gosh, these old fuddy-duddies and what have you. So, just the communication alone, that's a huge problem. Now, obviously, I help with that. But what I do is also deeper than that. Now, it is not mindset. I want to stress that very clearly because there's a million, billion, cajillion people out there saying, oh, you got to work on your mindset. To me, that is totally not only wrong, but actually very damaging. This is what I do, has nothing to do with mindset. Mindset is called waking up. I mean, there's really, it's basically when you talk about mindset, there's no reason to actually talk about it. So what I'm talking about is something, again, I call it the inner game, but even more specifically, I call it taming the caveman in your brain. Now, that's like one of my trademark phrases that I'm known for. And, by the way, you can see behind me, those of you watching, you can see some of my 27 books that I've written. And, one of the things that I'm known for.
What did you do today, right?
I know, right? I know. Slacking, aren't I? But anyway, so tame the caveman in your brain. Now, let me just unpack that for a moment, if I may.
Please do.
So we human beings, because what we're talking about is human psychology, right? Not mindset, but human neural psychology, all right? Now, when we talk about the human being, experts agree that the human being developed about 200,000 years ago on the African savanna, about 10,000 generations. We Homo sapiens have been on this planet, okay? So if you think about the human being, we've been around about 200,000 years. So the human brain is very much like a computer, right? We've all heard that. When you have a computer, you have hardware and software, right? So think about the laptop that's sitting on your desk right now. You bought it at the computer store, you bought it online, and there it is. It is hardware. That is hardwired in. But you can always upgrade your software, right? So what we're dealing with when we talk about the human brain and human psychology is the hardware, which was developed about 200,000 years ago. It just hasn't changed that much in 10,000 generations. Not really. However, we are now facing a critical moment in human history because we're dealing with, one of the things that we're dealing with is called artificial intelligence, AI, right? So we have the fastest technology that's ever been invented by mankind going up against the 200,000-year-old caveman in the brain. So how does this apply to a family office? Well, what you have is, and this is one of the things that I teach, is that you have 4 different types of cavemen in the brain. So I'm going to really dig in deep here, if that's okay with you, because I want your listeners to really get the benefit here and as much value as I possibly can share in the time that we have. So there are 4 different types of cavemen that I've identified. So the first type is called the chief. Now, the chief is exactly what it sounds like. The chief is the take charge, hard driving, let's get this done, win at all costs. Now, a lot of your listeners are chiefs because that's how they got there. And so the classic avatar for the chief is Steve Jobs, right? I'm sure we've all heard many stories about Steve Jobs, a brilliant visionary, hard driving. He literally changed the world. I mean, he absolutely, and this cannot be argued, he changed the world.
For sure.
But not very much known for his patience or his empathy or his listening skills, was he? Not really, no. And so anyway, so Steve Jobs, that is the avatar for the chief. So if you, and by the way, I'll mention that all of these types have strengths and weaknesses, right? I just talked about that, with Steve Jobs. So the strengths would be hard driving, get it done, change the world. Weaknesses would be empathy, listening, delegation, not so much. Okay. So that's the chiefs. Probably 65% of your audience are in the chiefs category. The second type of caveman is called the spark. Now, the spark is the energy, right? Their strength is getting people to do whatever they say. They're persuasive. They're master persuaders. They can sell ice to an Eskimo, right? They walk in the room and they light up the room. We all know someone like that. Maybe you're someone like that, right? So that's the spark. So the classic avatar for the spark is a Richard Branson, right? Richard Branson, brilliant guy, great entrepreneur, runs 100 companies. Do you know what Richard Branson's job is? His job is to walk around and be charming. That is his job. And he's great at it. He's got perfect hair and he's just the most charming guy you could ever meet. Okay,
and
so there's the spark.
Girls on his back.
Absolutely. So probably, a great percentage, a good percentage of your listeners are in the spark category. Yeah. The third type of caveman is called the keeper. Now, the keeper is like the keeper of the flame, the keeper of the hearth, wanting to make sure that everybody is happy, that everybody is together. Their strength is community and relationships, right? So the classic avatar for the keeper is Tim Cook. Now, Tim Cook, of course, took over after Steve Jobs passed away. And what did Tim Cook do? He kept the flame. He literally kept the flame alive. And now, of course, he created a $1 trillion company. So the strengths of the keeper are that, the connections, the relationships. The weaknesses might be maybe they have trouble standing up for themselves, asking for what they want. Maybe they're too quiet in those meetings, right? That maybe get contentious where the chiefs and the sparks are making all the noise and the keeper is just kind of sitting back there. So maybe as a keeper, you might need to speak up a little bit, stand up for yourself. That's an example. Okay. And then the final category or type of caveman is the watcher. The watcher, right? Now that is the type of person, their strength is insight. They see around the corner. They can see what's happening. They analyze. That's their strengths. But their weakness is it can turn into paralysis by analysis, right? We need another spreadsheet. We need another survey. We need to run this again. You've got enough information, probably. But, well, there's never enough information, right? That's what the watcher would say. Right. So the classic avatar for the watcher type is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, right? I'm sure everybody listening knows about the Oracle of Omaha, right? And what does he do? Data, right? Data driven. All his decisions are driven by data, not emotions. Take your emotions out of it. See, that's the exact opposite of the spark. The spark is like, let's go. Come on, this sounds great. Looks great. Let's go. And so isn't it interesting? These 4 different caveman types how different they are. So picture your last family meeting, right? Everyone listening, picture your last family meeting. Now that I just said that to you, I bet you can go around the room and say, oh my gosh, this is why Bob didn't hear what Susan was saying. And Susan couldn't understand what Jack was talking about
Give you
because
context.
they're all
Yeah.
talking these different languages. Isn't
Yeah.
that fascinating?
Yeah. So is it fair, and I don't want to supplant your words for ones that have been used by others, but is that similar to what Jung said with archetypes?
Well, not really. But I mean, I'm a huge fan of Jung. Don't get me wrong. I mean, but no, not really, because Jung was talking about I mean, he talked about a lot of stuff, but one of the things he talked about were those subconscious or unconscious archetypes, which were essentially, his argument was, we're acting them out. And of course, that's true for most people. Yes, we're doing these things without knowing it. So that is one of my points for, of course, bringing this up. Like when I'm in family offices, when I'm doing my coaching or doing keynote speeches, when I just present this information that I just did, people go, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. Because see, here's the really interesting thing. We have all been taught to treat others as we would like to be treated, right? We've heard that a million times, the golden rule, right?
Yep. Yep.
And it's a wonderful rule. It makes perfect sense. But now that I just taught you what I just shared with you, you realize that, well, actually, that's not actually really right. The better way is to treat others how they want to be treated.
They want to be treated. It actually is very enlightening what you just said.
Exactly. Because okay, so imagine that you have a chief talking to a watcher. The chief is like, let's go. We've got enough information. Let's just move. And the watcher's like, well, but no, we need another study. We need to really look at this. And they're going to be butting heads like crazy, right? Think about the spark talking to the keeper. The spark's all over the place. And hey, this is going to be fun. And the keeper's like, well, we got to make sure that everybody's okay and that they're safe and that they're happy. And they're like, well, it'll be fine. It'll all work out. You see what I mean? So now that I've talked to you about this and of course, there's a lot more to talk about, but just as a general concept now for everyone listening, you can literally look at the people in your life and go, wow, you know what? I'm a keeper and I've been talking like me to all these sparks and chiefs. No wonder I can't get through to them. So, and by the way, let me just be very clear. I'm not suggesting that you become somebody else, that you fake it or something. I'm suggesting that, number one, you, of course, know who you are. And by the way, you can go and take the free caveman quiz on my website. Go to noahstjohn.com. There's a free caveman quiz. Yeah. It's right there. And just answer 8 questions, and it will tell you in about 60 seconds, are you a chief, a spark, a keeper, or a watcher? Okay. And just literally answer some questions, and it's all free. noahstjohn.com. Take the free caveman quiz. It will enlighten you, number one. But number two, after you do that, then, for example, people bring me in to maybe be a mediator in those types of conversations. You see what I mean? Because sometimes it's just hard to break through, number one, our own blind spots, and of course, to break through to the other side. So that's one way that people bring me in. Another way reason that people bring me in is they realize that, wait a minute, the way that I've been doing things isn't working the way that I want. And yeah, I don't want to lose 70% or 90% of my wealth to this, second and third generation. Not that they're doing something wrong per se, but just that neural architecture isn't in place until you have someone like me that can come in and do that neural architecture.
And that neural architecture sounds to me like, and correct me, that it's 2 things. It's one, identifying who those people are, where they fit in these 4 categories.
Yes.
And 2, how do you communicate with them? Is that fair?
Yes. I mean, and there's more to it, but I mean, that's the basic idea. The basic idea is, again, going back to what I said, that when we're trying to communicate the way we want, we're probably wrong 3 out of 4 times. I mean, think about it. That's just statistically probably true. And by the way, let me give you a fun example of how this works in real life. So let's go back to this African savannah, right? Let's go back to caveman days, 200,000 years ago. All right. So here we are, we're in the cave. Now, over there is a woolly mammoth. Now, you haven't eaten in a week. You're hungry. All right. There's a woolly mammoth that could feed your family for a month. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Now, here's what you're going to do. So if you're a chief, what are you going to do? You're going to grab your spear and you're going to charge at that woolly mammoth. And you're just going to go, let's go. I mean, I'm getting it. And I'm going to do it all by myself and I'm going to be the hero. Okay, that's great. Maybe that works out. Maybe you get stomped. I don't know. But you see what I mean? So that's what the chief does. The spark sees that woolly mammoth and goes, hey, let's everybody get together. We can all, we'll all do it. Let's, and he's all excited. We'll all get him together. And he gets 50 people and, all right, we'll charge him. But then he starts to do it and then he gets distracted and he forgets what the mammoth was. What were we talking about again?
I love it.
So the sparks find it really easy to start, but very hard to finish. If you're listening to this and you can relate and you're nodding your head, you're like, oh, maybe you're a spark. Okay. You got 20 things going on and you didn't finish one of them. Okay. Easy to start, hard to finish. That's a spark. The keeper, what does the keeper do? Sees a woolly mammoth. Oh, we got to make sure the women and children are safe. We got to make sure that everybody's taken care of. All right. I mean, this is a big thing that we're about to do here. We got to make sure that the family's safe and make sure the fire's okay. And you see what I mean? Make sure connection and community. And what does the watcher do? The watcher studies and says, okay, you know what? We need to study the migration patterns of these woolly mammoths. And, the writing on the cave wall, that was the first spreadsheets. That was the watchers doing that. Right. The first spreadsheets were the drawings on the cave wall going, okay, here they go over here. And meanwhile, you've been studying the woolly mammoth migration patterns for 3 months and everybody's starving because you haven't done anything yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You see what I mean? So those are the 4 ways. So, okay, we don't have woolly mammoths today, Noah. I get it. But what is that problem? What is the problem you're looking at? Maybe the problem is AI. Maybe the problem is your succession plan. Maybe the problem is you don't know if your heirs are ready or not. Do you see how everybody is going to attack that problem in a different way? Okay, so it's really, really fascinating once you get into this. It's really amazing.
Is it, I'm imagining that perhaps 65% of the people are chiefs that are listening to this, right? Just a random number, as you suggested.
Probably a lot.
Probably a lot.
Majority, yes.
And is it also true, and would you say that the chiefs have elements of the others, but they're not anywhere close to the dominant way they look at things?
Well, the way that I teach this is that we're all everything. I mean, obviously I'm using broad brushstrokes to make a point. Yeah. And of course, we all have elements of everything within us, right? But for example, in my keynote presentations, let's say I'm coming in to do a keynote speech for your team, your group, your organization, your company. What I'll do is I'll have, after I, present the 4 different caveman types, I'll have everybody stand up. And then I'll say, all right, now everybody go to your respective corner based on your majority caveman type. What is your default caveman type? All right, so we're going to put the chiefs over here, the sparks over there, the keepers here, and the watchers there. So everybody goes to the different corners, and they're pointing. I knew that was you. And then they go, oh, now I see why I can't talk to Bob. I'm not getting through to Jane. I never thought of that before. And so everybody is seeing who they are and their default mode. Okay. Now, the beauty of this now is once it comes to your conscious attention, which I just brought it to your conscious attention. Let's face it. Up until this moment, until you heard me speak, you weren't aware of this. You've been doing this your whole life. Every single person listening has been doing this. But that's the point. It's in the subconscious. But now that I have started to bring it to the conscious, now you can make conscious choices about it. See, when you're not aware of something, going back to Jung, when you're not aware of something, then you're just operating on autopilot. You don't even know. Somebody comes in and maybe and I'm going to use my language, right? Maybe you're a chief and maybe that watcher comes in and you literally go, oh, here comes Bob again, and I know he's going to give me 12 spreadsheets and I got to look at all these numbers. Yeah. And can he just get to the point? You see what I mean? So, this is where a lot of interpersonal conflicts happen because you didn't know about it. Now that you know, or beginning to get it, you're like, oh, okay. So maybe I could just talk to Bob and Jane and Susan in a different way and see how they communicate. And then I can, communicate what I'm looking for. And we can do it in a much more conscious way and a much more constructive way. So that is one of the benefits of this, is that we don't have to just be going on caveman types anymore. We don't have to be going on autopilot.
Yeah, I super appreciate that because how many times have we read a book and came out of it and say, "Oh, I thought there was something like that, but they put it in words. Now it makes sense to me," right?
Yes, exactly.
Um, and so when you do this exercise, it's fascinating, by the way. Is it uh, pretty easy for people to self-assess into those groups?
Yeah. That nobody has trouble with it. I mean, some people will say, "But I'm this and that. I'm not." I just say, "Well, just pick one. Just pick one.
Yeah,
What's
just
your
pick one. Yeah,
default? What are you mostly?" Because like for me, I'm a watcher. You probably guessed that already, right?
yeah,
I'm a watcher. I'm the nerd, right? I was doing the spreadsheets on the cave wall, right? Drawing the migration patterns, and everything. So, but I also have a lot of a chief in me. I mean, because I get things done. And one
yeah,
one of the things that I don't do is paralysis by analysis. So
yeah.
I've trained myself to do that. Now, is it natural for me? Not really, but I've trained myself because I understand my tendencies. You see what I mean? I do have a tendency to, and I do. I still have way too many spreadsheets. That is true. I'll own up to that. And my team makes fun of me all the time. And I'll say, oh, we need another spreadsheet. Not another spreadsheet. I'm like, I know. I don't want to make any more spreadsheets. Believe me. I'm like, we really need this one though.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've
Like
learned
that.
to laugh at it. But the point is, I have the chief in me. I'm like, okay, we got enough information. Let's move. Let's take action. You can't possibly have enough information.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. So, but that's something I've consciously trained myself to do. And if I can do it, anybody can do
Yeah. So if you don't mind me sharing, so I'm definitely a chief.
it.
And so I've had to recently train myself to be a, uh, something that I never in a million years thought I would be able to do. And that is prompt AI, which
Mm,
requires a skill set that I didn't never had the patience to do, but I forced myself to do it. I found it rewarding in many levels because it produces outcome that the chief can execute on. Let's just say that.
that's right.
So it's
That's right.
fascinating. So you clearly can sort of get out of your comfort zone, so to speak, or whatever
Yes.
your tendencies are, right, or
Hmm.
proclivities, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, super interesting. So you don't have to give me details, but is it like when someone says, "Okay, we need your help," they recognize they need help. Is it a consulting project? How does it work, right?
Absolutely. By the way, for everyone listening, when you go to noahstjohn.com, make sure you take the caveman quiz first, but then I want you to click on the page that says legacy protection. Legacy protection. This is for your listeners, right?
Right.
The
Yeah.
family offices and the principals. Okay. Because this is neural legacy protection. I know that's a mouthful. I know it, but it's very simple. It just means taking care of the 3 pounds of gray matter that's controlling your whole enterprise,
Yeah.
which, let's face it, you're not doing right now. You just aren't. Okay. Having talked to thousands of people over the last 30 years, I know that. Okay. But anyway, so neural legacy protection, what it very simply means is, yes, the family office, the principal, the family will hire me, and it can be anywhere from 90 days to a year. And what I will do is I will come in and install, as I call it, my Power Habits system. Now, if you see this book behind me, it's called Power Habits. It's one of my 27 books, and this is my most popular book. But basically, so when the first thing that I do is basically present the as I call it, the caveman code, which I just did, right? And just introducing that to people will be enormous ahas, like light bulb moments, like, oh my gosh, I never thought of
I
that,
like it. Yeah.
and number one, and number two, this is explaining a lot of the interpersonal problems we're having right now. Okay,
Mhm.
so just even bringing that up is huge for many people, all right, because of that very thing. Because everybody, let's face it, everybody's trying to communicate in the way they communicate.
It's
They
really
don't
good.
really care about that other person, how that other person communicates.
Yeah.
Well, the more you don't care about that, the more friction you're going to have, right? So you need to care about it, even you chiefs, right? And they're like, why isn't everybody like me? Well, guess what? Everybody else is saying that too. Okay,
Yeah.
so good luck. All right. So the point is, if I would have been able to talk to Steve Jobs, would he have listened? Probably not. But everybody listening to this program can listen. Okay. So that's usually, the first phase is just that, which is huge. And then the second phase is where we're actually installing what I call my Power Habits framework. Now, very simply, that means that 30 years ago, as a result of literally studying and reading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of self-help books, success programs, seminars, everything. Literally spending hundreds and hundreds of hours and tens of thousands of dollars, well, hundreds of thousands of dollars that I invested. I realized that highly successful people are doing things unconsciously that they don't even know they're doing, number one, and therefore, number two, they can never teach it. So the full name of my program is called The Power Habits of Unconsciously Successful People. Now that sounds like a mouthful, but it's actually very simple. It's what I just said. Highly successful people are doing things unconsciously. They don't know they're doing it, number one, and therefore, number two, they can never teach it. So let me give you an example. So let's say go back to that family office, right? You've got the gray hairs in there. The first generation, they rolled up their shirt sleeves. They built this enterprise, very, very successful. They, worked and sweated and, they made it happen. They just did it. But then you have the second generation that didn't go through that pain, that process. And so, yes, they were handed the keys to the kingdom, but they didn't go through the pain that it took to build the kingdom. Yeah. So they're good, but they're missing something. And what's amazing is the first generation doesn't even know what they did. They know consciously what they did, but they don't understand, they don't know the subconscious things that they did to get them to that place. Does that make sense? Yeah. So this is why so many people go to all these self-help seminars, these success gurus, and the gurus aren't saying anything wrong necessarily, but they're also not saying anything helpful whatsoever. So a perfect example of this is what I call the hustle culture. The hustle culture, right? You got to work hard. You got to hustle and grind, right? And I've heard gurus say this a lot, which is that, when you're building your business, you don't take vacations. You don't go to ballet recitals. You don't go to soccer games. You just keep your nose to that grindstone until you've made 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion, or whatever it is. And that is really stupid, terrible advice. It's really, really dumb. Now, I get their point. And, their point basically is, well, you got to focus. Well, why don't you just say that? Why are you telling me I can't have a life while I'm building this enterprise, while I'm building this, while I'm building my kingdom? That doesn't even make any sense. What are you doing it for? Yeah. And so, believe me, Arthur, and I know you've seen this, and probably everybody listening can relate to this. There's a lot of miserable millionaires out there. There's a lot of miserable millionaires. You're nodding your head, so right? They sacrificed everything to build the kingdom, and they built the kingdom, and they get there and they're like, where is everybody? What happened?
What happened? Yeah.
What?
They missed a lot, right?
They missed everything. And in fact, if you go to another one of my pages on my website where I talk about one-on-one mentoring, the headline reads, "I'm successful and unhappy. Please help." Mm-hmm. That is an actual email I got from one of my clients named Bill. And he emailed me that and he literally said that. "I'm successful and unhappy. Please help." I thought, the story is, of course, I've got everything that I thought I was supposed to want. I got here and where's the happiness? How come I'm not happy? How come I'm not fulfilled? Yeah. Boom. That's the very point. Okay. So anyway, to answer your question, and I know there's a long-winded way of saying it, but basically this is what we get to. We get I elicit a lot of these unconscious fears, habits that they don't know they're doing. And frankly, for the second and third generation that are missing pieces that the first generation just simply cannot fill in, not because they're trying to keep something. They're unconscious. They don't know what they did. They did it, but they did it without knowing. So that's where I come in as the mediator. And I actually literally am the bridge that connects those two things together. So like, for example, I had one client who's, a 9-figure client and runs a 9-figure company. And he said to me that he has a Bachelor of Science from a very, very major university. If I said the name of the university, you'd all know what it is. You can go to my website and watch his video. I'm not going to say it on the air here, but anyway, and he said, "I have a 4-year degree, Noah, from this major university." He said, "What you taught me in 6 weeks is worth more than the entire degree, the 4-year degree that I got from this university." And I was like, "You're welcome." I had another client say, "What you taught me, I have degrees from Harvard and Columbia." And he said, "What you've taught me is more valuable than Harvard and Columbia." I said, "Let's see. Harvard, Columbia, and this other one. I'm like, gee, I should charge more. But anyway, you get the point. This is stuff that we're just not taught in regular school out there.
So those subconscious success things that successful people do,
Yeah.
some are good and some are bad. Is that fair to say?
Well, I mean, the way that I use that terminology for habits, because now I'm kind of pivoting to habits. We've been talking about caveman and neural architecture. Now I'm pivoting to habits because
Right.
let's face it, our habits are how we build our lives. Your habits create your very life. And so what I like to say with my clients and in my keynote presentations, I don't use terminology good and bad. In other words, good habits, bad habits.
Yeah.
The terminology, because I find that people really take that the wrong way and they misinterpret that.
Mhm.
So what I talk about is productive versus unproductive. Productive versus unproductive. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's look at your goals. See, everything comes back to your goals. What is it you want? I'm talking to everybody listening. What is it you want? Because let's say, when you hire me, whether you bring me in to, consult for your family or whether you do one-on-one mentoring or coaching with me, it's not about what I want. It's about what you want. And let's face it, most people don't even know what they want, right? They just have a general sense of, well, I want to be happy. Okay, well, that's great. What does that mean? And they're like, I don't know. Maybe we should talk about that. Yeah, good idea. Right. So, I mean, literally on page 1, we're like, what does that mean? I don't know yet. Okay, well, that's part of the work. So, but the point is that let's say you know what you want, right? You have your goal. So then your habits can either be productive or unproductive. Productive means they're habits that get you towards your goal, right? So a classic example would be, I want to get in shape. I want to have a fit body. Okay, so what's a productive habit? Well, you would eat right? You would stop eating junk food. You would exercise, all right? You'd get enough sleep. You'd drink enough water. These are pretty simple things, right? But guess what? What are most people doing? Unproductive habits. Eating junk food, not getting enough protein, not getting enough sleep, not drinking enough water, and so forth. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, totally.
when you look at that, it really takes the labeling off of good or bad because let's face it, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It only matters if it's getting you towards your goal or not.
In the context of being the bridge between the gray hairs and the blue hairs,
Yes.
to use your terminology, which I love, and maybe you throw a nose ring in there from time to time.
Oh, totally.
Is disclosing those productive and non-productive habits that made that gray hair successful with the next generation a productive thing to do?
Could you repeat? I didn't quite get the question there.
What I was thinking you were getting at is that the gray hair's got all these habits that they do subconsciously that have caused them on some level to have success.
Yes.
Is it productive for the next generation to understand those productive and non-productive habits in a maybe a catalyzing the communication? Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, that's really what my power habit system is. So what I did 30 years ago, and I've been teaching this since 1997, is having synthesized all of those, books and works and everything that I talked about, I realized that the gurus were missing the entire point. And that, they're telling us, work hard, set your goals, focus, all these things that aren't wrong, but are totally not helpful. So I realized that highly successful people are doing things unconsciously that they don't even know they're doing, and therefore they can't teach it. So that's my power habits framework is really what I teach the second and third generation. That's where you get, not only the better communication, but really the obvious point here, going back to what I talked about at the very beginning, is the offense and defense, right? So the offense, you've built the wealth, right? Your offense is doing great, but guess what? Defense wins championships, right? To use a football analogy, right? Defense wins championships. That's why you're losing. When I say you, I mean, 90% of wealth being lost by the third generation. It's not that you didn't have enough money or you didn't have all the protection in place. You had all the outer game, great, but nobody helped you with the inner game. So that's what I do with the power habits framework. It is, in fact, what the highly successful people do or did that they don't even know they did. And so they can't tell you. You could interview them all day long. And they wouldn't be able to come up with this. I literally have had grown men in tears, in my workshops, in my leadership summits, grown men, because they're like, I never thought of this before. I never understood what I even did or what was holding me back from reaching my full potential. And so, I'll give you a quick example. I was speaking at a seminar in Los Angeles for 1,000 entrepreneurs, founders, 7, 8, 9-figure business owners. I was walking off the stage, just finished my presentation. A man came up to me and he said, Noah, I want to hire you as my coach. You are the coach I've been looking for. Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. Ironically, his name was Adam. True story. You can see his video and many others on my website. But anyway, I said, okay, well, what's going on? He said, Noah, I own a company and we got to 7 figures really fast, but we have been plateaued at the same level for the past 4 years. 4 years we've been stuck. And he said, I have thrown hundreds of thousands of dollars at this problem, hired every marketing guru, all these big names. He named all the names. And he said, but we're still stuck. We're still hitting that ceiling, that invisible ceiling that you talk about. And he said, as soon as I heard you speak about inner game and outer game and power habits and everything you just said, and the caveman, everything you just said, he said, I knew you were the coach I've been looking for. So he literally hired me on the spot to coach him. And I love working with high achievers, right? Because they make decisions quickly and firmly. I mean, clearly a chief, right? Like, let's go, let's do this. So that's why I love working with chiefs, because they make decisions and they go. And so anyway, so I coached him and his leadership team for 18 months. In that 18 months, we were able to get his company that had been stuck for the previous 4 years to over 20 million. From 4 million to 20 million. That's a more than 600% increase. We like to call that hockey stick, right? So you're going along like this, and then we install my frameworks, and then whoop, you go through the roof. So that's an example of how he was doing well with his outer game, right? He got to 7 figures. Hey, that's pretty darn good, right? Most people would be thrilled with that. But he knew he was capable of more, but it wasn't until I showed him how to master his inner game, that's when we got the hockey stick growth.
So I don't want to oversimplify it, but was it the revealing of those subconscious productive and non-productive habits that was the epiphany that caused that to happen, aside from your bedside manner and your skill set and all that kind of stuff? Was that?
Well, I mean, certainly that's part of it. Yeah. I mean, it's a big part, but basically it works no matter where you are, so I have 9-figure clients, I have 8-figure clients, 7-figure clients, and everybody is essentially the same. We're just dealing with different numbers. But I will still say my argument holds, which is that I mean, nobody who's ever hired me has the neural framework in place. And so am I the only person teaching this? Yeah, I am. Certainly the only person teaching it in this way that has gotten these results for my clients for so long. So yeah, it is the framework. And yes, you could call it my bedside manner if you like. I like that term. But I mean, and what I'm very good at, quite frankly, Arthur, is really listening and honing in on that client, that individual or that family, whatever it might be, if it's a group, and really understanding what's not being said. Like that client I mentioned a moment ago, who said that I gave him more than his 4-year degree. I don't think anybody had listened to him for probably 40 years. Probably nobody had been listening, and he was just there, and I was able to listen. And, the results, now he just did a 9-figure exit, in fact. So nice. Very, very nice.
So one would argue, or often people argue, that you can't be helped unless you're willing to be helped. Like you have to be sort of fertile for that sort of thing. And at the beginning, you said something about, 99% of the people just don't want to do this sort of thing. Is that true? Is that what you find?
Well, I love that you brought this up, because here's where you're talking about ego. Okay. And of course the Chiefs, big ego. All right. And let's face it, you deserve to have a big ego because you're very successful. I mean, everybody listening to this program is very successful. So, with that comes a big ego. So I'm not against the big ego. That's not the point. The point is that when you have become so successful over so many years, you start to believe that I'm invincible. I don't need help. I'm good. And so it's tricky. It's really tricky. So yeah, I mean, look, the number one thing that I look for in a client is coachability. Are you going to listen to me? Are you just gonna say, oh, yeah, I knew that. I knew that. Okay. Well, then don't hire me. Don't.
Yeah, what are
Okay.
we doing?
We're done before we even started. And I can get that in 5 minutes from talking to
Yeah.
somebody at this point. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, so I can tell if somebody, like, Adam, that example I mean, he ran up to me, practically grabbed me by the clothes and said, I want you to coach me. I'm like, okay, that's the kind of person I want.
Yeah, totally. It is the I know it's idiosyncratic to who you're dealing with, but and the fact pattern and the willingness to be coached and so forth.
Yes.
Is it a 3-week process, 3-month process? I know you said 90 days to a year, but what have you found if people are willing to be coached and they're listening and they actually have the tools and they're bright enough and their success wasn't by accident necessarily, that because I've been successful by accident many, many times. And unsuccessful intentionally.
Right. Yeah, that's the trick, isn't it? Right. Yeah. When it's an accident, that's one thing. That's winning the lottery, right? That's a perfect example, right? That's winning the lottery. Well, the people listening to this program, you did better than winning the lottery because you built it over time, which of course is much harder. But anyway, but to your point, I mean, yes, anywhere from 90 days to a year is the typical. And of course, I have clients who stay with me for years. So it's not like they have to stop after years. People want to stay with me. But in all fairness, the aha moments, the light bulb moments, they happen instantly. I mean, just look at the things that I've shared with you just in the,
caveman thing in the
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm known for. I mean, so, being the watcher that I am, what I am really is a synthesizer. What I mean by that is I've spent so much money and so many years doing this that I'm able to synthesize what people have never said before. And literally, I see the light bulbs. I have the tears that, from my audience members, men and women. And that's incredible because what that's showing me is that person had been holding that in for a very, very long time. And even that client that I talked about a moment ago who, said I'm more valuable in his 4-year degree. He's not known for his loquaciousness. He's not, a really talkative guy. And when he said that, I almost fell off my chair because I'm like, really? Okay. I didn't know if you liked it or not. That was only 6 weeks into our engagement, our year-long engagement. But 6 weeks in, he's like, yeah, you're worth more than my degree. I'm like, okay. I'm glad to hear that. And yes, maybe I should have charged you more. I didn't say.
Yeah. Yeah. So, have you gone down the road? I mean, and please don't take this the wrong way, but there's an endless number of people that are trying to sell you on courses and programs and blah, blah, blah. It's like drive you nuts, right?
Yes.
And being the archetype or whatever, sorry, using that word that I am, I have people sending me stuff and saying, we know how to do this and we know how to do that. We'll teach you the course. I said, I don't want to teach the course. Just do it. I'll pay you to do it. Right. Just do it. Right. Is that, if you've gone down that road where, if they can't afford you, there's a plan B?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started out writing books and creating online courses. So when you go to noahstjohn.com, you can just click on the shop page if you would like to use or take advantage of my online courses. And by the way, for those of you who run a company, I do have licensing also. So let's say you have salespeople on your team and you want them to get this caveman code, as I call it, we can license that. And then I come in and I do, let's say, once a month or every quarter, and I do a training. It can be live, it can be virtual. So for those of you running a company, there's many, many ways to slice and dice this. But yes, absolutely, all this is available online on courses. And in fact, in my coaching, that's what we do. We go through my course. So, I mean, it is a curriculum. I'm not, there's a lot of coaches out there that basically the coaching call is, so how's it going this week? How's your dog? And you're like, really? I'm paying for this? I mean, give me a break, So no, remember, I'm the watcher. So I created this framework a long, long time ago, and having made my clients billions of dollars, billions. The framework works. Okay, so it's proven, but yes, it is absolutely a framework, a curriculum that we start on step 1 and we go through step 11. There's 11 total steps, and it's very systematic because everything I do is systematic. My wife teases me. She says, I have a system for everything from brushing my teeth to getting up in the morning, and that is true. I do that. But
So
yeah, so we, again, to answer your question, yes, we have the online courses, and the coaching and the consulting actually goes from that, comes from the courses, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel at this point. I already have it. I've proven it literally thousands of times. So, and people love that. They really, really like it, because they want to know that we're going somewhere. We're starting at point A and we're going to Z. He's not just making it up as he goes along. No, there's a framework, and the framework works. In fact, it's funny. One of my earliest clients said to me, Noah, do you realize that your coaching is the only coaching that fixes every other coaching? And I said, yeah, you know what? You're right. That I would agree with that. And he also said, when people do your coaching, it can never not work. And I'm like, yeah. And this is a guy that he was working 80-hour weeks. Now he's working 20-hour weeks and making literally 4 times more than he was before. So anyway, that I like that he said it. I didn't have to say it.
yeah, exactly.
It never not works. And it's the only coaching that fixes every other coaching. I'm like,
I love that.
That's good. I'm going to use that.
I definitely use that. So if you don't mind me, everybody likes to apply things to their own fact pattern, right? So in my case, we have thousands of entrepreneurs that we get 200 applicants a month that want to meet family offices to get money.
Of course.
That's really the business model, right?
Of course.
And we don't get paid any commissions. We don't get paid any of that kind of stuff. We just assess them, decide, out of 200, 10 or 12 a month, and then we give them the opportunity to connect in a meaningful way. And one of the things that is helpful to them is all the stuff that we've learned about entrepreneurs pitching to family offices. And we have, we not only know about that type of stuff anecdotally, we have it empirically coded into our system, so to speak. Not watcher system, but close, right?
Pretty darn good.
So I'm wondering whether it would be beneficial to all these entrepreneurs that come to us and look for help in, they're running through walls and they're driven and they're looking for,
Yes.
So it's not the typical client necessarily that you have where they've already had success and now what's next. It's, holy cow, I want to be like them, right? Is that something that the courses could be helpful with?
Oh, absolutely. Because the power habits do both of what I talked about earlier, help you build wealth and protect wealth. There's really no other program out there that does that. Usually it's, here's how to make money. Okay, well, that's nice. I mean, we all want to make money, but it doesn't say anything about protecting it. Meanwhile, you have the protection, but it's all the outer protection, the estate planning, the tax, and so forth and so on, which you need. But it doesn't say anything about your inner game, doesn't say anything about your neural architecture. So I literally am a category of one, which is nice. I like that. But yeah, absolutely. So for those of you listening, if you're right now in the stage of your life where I want to build wealth, right? I want that offense on the field. Boom. Well, I can help you with that. And then if you're at the stage of your life where you say, well, I've already done that and now I want to protect it. Well, I help you with that too. And again, I'm doing it in a different way. You already have all the tax, all the estate, all that stuff. And of course you must have it. And I really don't even talk about this stuff because that's not my expertise. And I say, talk to your attorneys and all your estate people and do that. But you need me to protect the 3 pounds of gray matter that is running all of it that right now is unprotected.
Yeah. Super interesting. I think a lot of the people that we, that cross our paths, we're very hyper-focused on our business model, so we don't get involved in a lot of other things. But there's an opportunity to get involved and help people in that way. Because let's just face it, the entrepreneurs that we're working with are often any one of those 3. I mean, it could be just the programmer that said, I love this thing and no one's going to buy it, right? Like who cares? Nobody cares. And then you've got the chief who said, I'm going to build something and okay, that didn't work. Let's build something else. Right. So, yeah. So there's the whole,
everybody has strengths and weaknesses. Nobody's right or wrong. It's just different, and that's nice. And let's face it. It takes all types, doesn't it? you
It
know? So,
totally.
and again, I will reiterate that we all have all of these in us. There's certainly times when, you know, we've all been take charge, and there's times when we have to step back, and so on and so on. But, you know, again, if your default one, you know what it is based on my description, yeah, you can pretty much go with that. And then what's nice is you can take the caveman quiz, go to noahstjohn.com, get the legacy protection. You know, it's all right there.
Yeah, we'll make sure everybody gets those things when we publish this for sure. And I'm definitely going to do it, even though I think I know where I am. But it's kind of like Noah. I have so many times in my life read a book
Hmm.
or talked to somebody and said, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I thought it was," but it didn't really. No one really articulated it
Hmm.
well, and so it just brings it to another level, right? And
Yes,
even if you
yes.
didn't know it, you go, "Holy cow, look at that!" Right?
That's right.
So yeah, I think that it's super valuable. You know, I've
Thank
done.
you.
I'm a fan of and done work with the human design. Have you studied that at all? It's kind
Not
of
really. I
woo.
don't think so.
Yeah, it's kind of a woo-woo thing, right? Where you go through a process and it says it's not like what you're doing. It's kind of, you know, a little bit more woo-woo, but it gives you
Hmm.
an assessment of whether you're a manifest generator or this type of person or that person. Anyway, so it's been super helpful because basically said did the same sort of thing that I was just saying. It it assessed me, and then it said it allowed me to say, well, that's why I behave that way because I'm
Mm,
this, right?
right.
So anyway, it was just an interesting little study
Yes.
we
Well, we
posted.
always, I mean, what is the most fascinating subject to any human being?
Yeah,
Themselves,
yeah,
right? So, you know, this is another window to your soul,
yeah,
and really a window to your opportunities,
yeah.
right? Both for building wealth and protecting wealth. And that's what's really, really helpful about this, and very powerful, you know, and I'll reiterate the fact that because I've helped so many people do this, literally tens of thousands over the last 3 decades, it's very proven. You can go to my results page on the website. You can literally see hundreds of case studies from celebrities. I mean, big name celebrities like
Love
Jenny
it.
McCarthy, Gary Vaynerchuk,
Yeah,
um,
Gary, I saw that.
Jack,
Yeah,
Jack Canfield, and on and on and on, all the way to, you know, regular everyday people to seven,
Harvey
eight, nine
McKay.
figure entrepreneurs.
Harvey McKay, it was on there, right?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's a dear friend, and gave me a really, really nice endorsement. And
Yeah,
I mean, I was a huge fan of Harvey McKay's. Meeting him was one of my dreams come true, and just got, you know, pictures in his office, and he's an amazing man. Amazing man.
yeah. One of my favorite books.
Absolutely. Mine too.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll make sure everybody figures out how to get in touch with you and
Thank you.
put the
That's
link
so,
in for that. And I super appreciate you sharing this.
oh, thank you. My pleasure.
When we first heard about you, I wasn't sure what to expect, but I'm super glad that you took the time to do this and share it with all of us. I
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for being here, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Until next time. Thank you.